I, 28F, have been married to Robert, 30M, for 3 years now. We met at a mutual friend's birthday party where I was helping with first aid after someone got hurt. Robert was impressed by how I handled the situation, and we started talking. At that time, I was working as a nurse at a local hospital, and he was a software engineer at a growing tech company. We clicked instantly and started dating. The problems began when Robert introduced me to his mom, Lori, 55F. From the moment she opened the door and saw me in my simple dress and minimal jewelry, I could tell she wasn't impressed. During dinner, she kept asking about my family background, my education, and my career choices. When I told her I was a nurse working in the emergency department, she nearly choked on her wine. She started lecturing about how nurses were always overworked and underpaid, and how they barely had time for family life. Later, I found out that Lori had been planning to set Robert up with her friend Janet's daughter Betty, 26F, for years. Betty came from a wealthy family, had studied at expensive private schools, and was the perfect trophy wife material according to Lori. She was a homemaker who had never worked a day in her life because she didn't need to. Lori thought Betty would be perfect for Robert because she could focus on family unlike me who worked 12-hour shifts. Throughout our dating period, Lori tried everything to break us up. She would invite Betty to every family gathering without telling us. There were countless accidental meetings where we'd arrive at their house for dinner, only to find Betty already there, dressed up and sitting in Robert's old spot at the table. Lori would make a big show of how Betty had cooked all of Robert's favorite dishes or how she had redecorated the living room just like Robert always wanted. The worst part was how Lori would constantly compare me to Betty. If I brought a homemade dish to family dinner, Lori would say, "Oh, that's nice. But Betty made this amazing gourmet meal last week." If I mentioned being tired after a long shift at the hospital, she'd say, "See, this is why Betty would be better. She'd be home taking care of you, Robert." It was endless. Robert always stood up for me though. He would shut down his mom's comments and sometimes we'd leave family dinners early when Lori got too offensive. He made it clear to everyone that he loved me and wanted to be with me, not Betty. This only made Lori try harder to break us up. When we got engaged, Lori threw the biggest tantrum I'd ever seen from a grown woman. She cried, screamed, and even threatened to disown Robert. She called me a gold digger, ironic, given that I had my own career, and said I was trapping her son. Robert's dad Mark tried to calm her down, but she was hysterical. She even called my workplace trying to dig up dirt on me, but my co-workers only had good things to say. We got married anyway, in a beautiful ceremony that Lori spent sulking through. She wore black like she was at a funeral and kept making comments about how this wasn't the wedding she had imagined for her son. Robert's dad Mark apologized for her behavior, but you could tell he was used to just letting her have her way to keep the peace. After marriage, Lori's behavior got worse. She would show up at our house unannounced, always when she knew Robert would be at work. She'd inspect everything, running her finger along surfaces checking for dust, opening our fridge and cupboards to criticize how I kept house. She'd rearrange our furniture while telling me how Betty would have decorated better. She even brought Betty with her a few times, showing her around our house like she was the real owner. Lori also started a campaign of subtle sabotage. She would tell Robert that she'd invited us for dinner but conveniently forget to tell me, making me look bad when we didn't show up. She'd buy me clothes in sizes too small and act surprised when they didn't fit, making comments about my weight. She told all her friends that I was mistreating her, turning them against me before I even met them. Last month, everything came to a head. Lori showed up at our house one evening when Robert was working late. She had this triumphant look on her face that made my stomach turn. Without saying hello, she pulled out her phone and showed me some pictures. They showed me hugging a man in the hospital parking lot, my face buried in his chest. The pictures were taken from a distance but clear enough to see it was me. Lori started gloating about how she finally had proof that I was cheating on Robert. She threatened to show him the pictures unless I left him. She had it all planned out. I would confess to cheating, move out, and Betty would be there to comfort Robert through his heartbreak. Lori even had divorce papers ready, which she pulled out of her designer handbag. What Lori didn't expect was for me to start laughing. The man in the pictures was my brother Mike, who had just had his final checkup after beating stage 3 cancer. The hug she caught on camera was me celebrating with him after getting the all clear. Robert knew all about this. He had visited Mike in the hospital multiple times during his treatment and had been supporting both of us through the whole ordeal. I called Robert right there and put him on speaker. I told him his mom was trying to blackmail me with pictures of me hugging Mike. Robert was instantly furious. He left work immediately and came home. When he saw the pictures and the divorce papers, he completely lost it. He asked his mom how she could use my brother's cancer recovery as a weapon against me. Lori tried to backtrack, claiming she didn't know it was my brother, but that was an obvious lie. She had met Mike several times and even sent him a get well card during his treatment. Robert told her to leave our house and not come back until she could treat me with respect. He was shaking with anger as he said this. I had never seen him so angry before. Lori left in tears, but she wasn't done yet. She started calling all our relatives, telling them I had somehow manipulated Robert into turning against his own mother. She painted herself as the victim, crying about how she was just trying to protect her son from a cheating wife. Robert's dad, Mark, who had always tried to stay neutral in our conflicts, finally stepped in. He told Lori she had gone too far this time. He was tired of making excuses for her behavior. That was 3 weeks ago, and we haven't heard directly from Lori since, though we keep hearing about the rumors she's spreading about us. Robert is hurt but remains firm that his mom needs to seriously apologize and change her behavior if she wants to be part of our lives again. Update 1: The situation has gotten much worse since my last post. Lori has been working overtime to destroy my reputation in their social circle. She's been calling every family member, family friend, and acquaintance, telling them that I'm some sort of manipulative witch who's keeping her son away from his loving family. According to her version of events, I forced Robert to cut contact with her because I'm trying to isolate him from everyone who truly cares about him. Her smear campaign has been surprisingly effective with some people. Several of Robert's aunts and uncles have been calling him nonstop, telling him he's making a huge mistake. They keep saying things like your mother just wants what's best for you and you regret pushing your family away for a woman. Some have even suggested that Robert should give Betty a chance, since she's still single and apparently still interested in him. One aunt actually had the nerve to tell Robert that divorce isn't as stigmatized these days, implying he should leave me. But last week, something happened that changed everything. Janet, Betty's mom, reached out to me asking to meet privately. I was hesitant at first, but she insisted it was important. We met at a coffee shop far from our usual neighborhoods to avoid being seen. Janet looked nervous and guilty, nothing like her usual confident self. After ordering our drinks, she broke down and confessed everything. Apparently, Lori and Betty had been plotting against me for months. They had created a detailed plan to break up my marriage, complete with a shared Google document where they tracked my movements and brainstormed ways to create problems between Robert and me. Janet showed me their group chat messages on her phone. I felt sick reading through them. They had been following me around for months, taking pictures of every interaction I had with male colleagues and patients at the hospital. They documented when I went to lunch with my male co-workers, always in groups, always work-related, when I helped elderly male patients to their cars, even when I talked to the male barista at my regular coffee shop. They were desperate to find something, anything they could twist into evidence of infidelity. Betty had even applied for a job at Robert's company, hoping to run into him at work and create some office romance drama. She had planned to deliberately seek him out for help with projects, invite him to team lunches, and try to rekindle their non-existent past connection. Thankfully, she didn't get the job. Her technical skills weren't up to par according to the hiring manager. When their other plans failed, they decided to use the pictures of me hugging my brother as their trump card. The chat messages showed they knew exactly who Mike was. They had even discussed waiting outside the hospital on his appointment day because they knew I would be there. Lori had written, "Finally got the pictures we need. Even if it's just her brother, we can use this. Robert will have to at least doubt her when he sees them." Janet said she felt guilty about her part in all this. She admitted she had initially encouraged Betty's interest in Robert because of the business connections it would create between their families, but she never thought it would go this far. She showed me more messages where Lori and Betty discussed their plans for after I was out of the picture, how Betty would swoop in to comfort Robert, how they would start dating, how perfect their life would be. When I showed all this to Robert, he was devastated. He had known his mother didn't like me, but seeing the calculated malice in those messages broke something in him. He couldn't believe his mother would go to such lengths to destroy his marriage. The fact that they had been stalking me for months, trying to catch me doing something wrong, made him furious. 2 days later, at a family gathering we had to attend for his cousin's birthday, Robert confronted Betty in front of everyone. He wasn't yelling or causing a scene, but his voice was cold and firm as he asked her to explain the messages. Betty, caught off guard and with no way to deny it, broke down crying. She admitted everything, how she had always had feelings for Robert, how Lori had convinced her they were meant to be together, how they had planned to break up my marriage. Lori tried to defend their actions, saying they did it because they cared about Robert's happiness. She truly believed that Betty would make a better wife than me. But Robert wasn't having any of it. He told Betty he would never be interested in someone who would try to destroy another person's marriage, and that even if I wasn't in the picture, he would never date someone who could be so cruel and calculating. The next day, Lori showed up at our house again. Instead of apologizing, she doubled down. She said she was just looking out for her son's future and that Betty would make a better wife and mother than me. She went on about how Betty came from a good family, had proper values, and would be home to take care of Robert instead of working long hours at a hospital. That was the last straw for Robert. He lost his temper for the first time I've ever seen and told his mother to leave. He said he couldn't believe his own mother would stoop so low as to stalk and harass his wife, try to blackmail her, and then defend those actions as love. He told her not to contact either of us again until she was ready to sincerely apologize and accept our marriage. Lori left in tears again, but this time it was different. This time, she had no more cards to play, no more schemes to fall back on. Her plan had completely backfired, not only failing to break up our marriage but also damaging her relationship with her son, possibly beyond repair. Robert is still processing everything, but he says he feels like he's seeing his mother's true colors for the first time, and he doesn't like what he sees. We're taking things day by day now, trying to focus on our marriage and each other rather than the drama. But I have a feeling this isn't over yet. Lori isn't the type to admit defeat easily, and I'm worried about what she might try next. Update 2: the situation with Lori has gotten completely out of hand. She's turned into someone I barely recognize anymore, and her behavior has become increasingly erratic. Last week, she started showing up at my workplace unannounced. She would wait in the hospital lobby, cornering my colleagues when they came in for their shifts. She told them wild stories about how I manipulated her son and stole him from his true love, Betty. At first, my colleagues just ignored her, but then she started getting aggressive. She would try to follow them into staff-only areas, demanding they listen to her side of the story. The final straw was when she cornered one of our new nurses in the parking lot and reduced her to tears with accusations about helping me hide my affairs. My supervisor had to get involved and officially ban her from hospital premises. Security now has her picture, and they've been instructed to call the police if she shows up again. But the real bombshell dropped last Friday. We finally discovered why Lori was so obsessed with getting Robert to marry Betty. It turns out this wasn't just about her preference for Betty or her dislike of me, there was a business deal involved the whole time. Janet's husband David owns TechPro, one of the biggest tech companies in our state. They've been expanding rapidly and are known for paying extremely well. Apparently, years ago, when Robert was still in college, Lori and Janet made an agreement. If Robert married Betty, he would get a high-level position at TechPro, complete with stock options and a seat on their board of directors. Lori had already promised Janet that Robert would join their company after marriage, all without Robert's knowledge or consent. This all came to light when David contacted Robert directly. He sent an email with an impressive job offer, casually mentioning the arrangement between their families and how he was still willing to honor it despite the recent unpleasantness. Robert was completely blindsided. He had no idea his mother had been using his marriage as a bargaining chip for his career. When Robert showed me the email, everything started making sense. This explained why Lori was so invested in getting Robert and Betty together, why she hated me so much, and why she became increasingly desperate as time went on. She wasn't just losing her dream of Betty as a daughter-in-law, she was losing a major business opportunity she had been banking on for years. Robert was furious. He had always wondered why his mother was so fixated on Betty, but he never imagined it was because she had literally tried to sell his future to advance her own social standing. He immediately drafted a firm but professional reply to David, declining the offer and making it clear that he had never been aware of or agreed to any arrangement regarding his marriage and career. When we confronted Lori about this, her reaction was shocking. Instead of being embarrassed or apologetic, she defended herself completely. She said she was trying to secure Robert's future and that the connection with TechPro would have been invaluable for his career. She actually seemed proud of herself for arranging such a perfect future for her son. Lori went on a long rant about how I had ruined everything with my selfish decision to keep working as a nurse. She said Betty's family connections would have helped Robert's career more than a nurse wife ever could. She talked about all the society events and networking opportunities Robert was missing out on because I was too busy working shifts at the hospital instead of attending charity galas with Betty. Robert finally snapped. He told her he was perfectly happy with his current job and his wife, and that he didn't need her to plan his life. He said he'd rather work his way up on his own merit than use marriage as a career move. He also pointed out that my salary as a nurse helped us buy our house, something Lori had conveniently forgotten when criticizing my career. The confrontation ended with Lori storming out, but not before she dropped another bombshell. She revealed that she had already spent money renovating a house for Robert and Betty, convinced that her plan would work. She had been so sure that once the pictures of me cheating came out, Robert would leave me and run straight to Betty. Now she was stuck with a renovated house and a ruined plan. This whole revelation has left us reeling. Robert is dealing with the fact that his mother basically tried to sell him into a marriage for business connections. I'm trying to process that all of Lori's attacks on my career weren't just snobbery, she was actively trying to clear the way for her business deal. It's like finding out the past several years of our lives have been part of someone else's chess game. Update 3. It's been 3 months since everything blew up, and our lives have changed dramatically. After all the drama with Lori and the tech pro situation, Robert got headhunted by a competing tech company in a different city. They offered him a better position with nearly double his current salary. After much discussion, we decided to take the offer and move. I was able to transfer to their city's main hospital, and we saw this as an opportunity for a fresh start away from all the drama. The distance has been good for us. Without Lori's constant interference and the weight of family expectations, we've been able to focus on our marriage and our future together. We bought a beautiful house in a quiet neighborhood, and for the first time since our wedding, we feel like we can breathe freely. Lori's reaction to our move was predictably dramatic. She's been telling everyone who'll listen that I forced Robert to move away to isolate him from his family completely. She even tried to convince Robert's dad, Mark, that I was being abusive by cutting Robert off from his support system. Fortunately, most people now know better than believe her stories. Speaking of Mark, he finally reached his breaking point with Lori. After discovering the business deal she tried to arrange with Tech Pro and watching her increasingly erratic behavior, he decided he couldn't stay in the marriage anymore. He moved out last month and is filing for divorce. He told Robert that watching Lori try to destroy our marriage made him realize how toxic she had become, and he couldn't keep enabling her behavior. Betty, surprisingly, has moved on. She got engaged to a junior partner at her father's law firm. Janet reached out to us again to apologize, this time with Betty. They both acknowledged how wrong they had been to participate in Lori's schemes. Betty admitted that she had gotten caught up in Lori's manipulation and her own teenage crush on Robert, but seeing how happy we are together made her realize she had been chasing a fantasy. Lori, however, still hasn't shown any remorse. Instead of apologizing, she tried to turn Robert's extended family against us by playing the victim. She told them we were cruel to move away when she was going through a divorce. She even tried to organize a family intervention to convince Robert to move back home, but no one was interested in participating. The last straw was when Lori somehow got our new address and showed up unannounced, crying about how she had lost everything, her son, her husband, and her social standing, because of me. Robert calmly told her that she had lost everything because of her own actions, not because of me. He told her we would be going completely no contact unless she got professional help and showed genuine remorse for her actions. Since then, we've blocked Lori on everything. Robert says he's open to reconciliation if she ever truly changes, but we both know that's unlikely to happen. She's still convinced she did nothing wrong and that everything that happened is my fault. The whole experience has actually made our marriage stronger. Robert and I have learned to communicate better and stand united against external pressures. We've built a close circle of friends in our new city, and Robert's dad visits us regularly. My parents have been incredibly supportive throughout everything, and they're helping us plan for our future. Sometimes I think about how Lori's attempts to break us up ended up pushing us closer together. Her schemes made us realize how strong our bond really is. We're now expecting our first child, and while part of me is sad that our baby won't have a relationship with their paternal grandmother, I know we made the right decision in cutting toxic people out of our lives, even if they're family.